You're listening to the Jan Price Show, all about movies, and today my guests are director Dafna Yachin
Did I get
Dafna
it right?
Yachin. It's not an easy one. It's Dafna Yachin.
Right.
and writer Charlene Davis. Much easier. So, welcome to the show, Dafna and Charlene. And the film we're going to be talking about is an award-winning film entitled Relative Control. And I want to say many people are going to relate to this movie, for sure. There's a lot in it, and certainly takes tackles something that's going on for many Americans, and it does it in a really poignant way. So I appreciate you both being on the show to talk about relative control. Charlene, you were the writer of this, and in my research, I realized some of this was a little bit autobiographical for you.
Well, certainly, yes. My experiences as a lawyer and as a daughter informed the storyline a good deal, although there are subplots which are not are fictionalized, and some of the interaction between the father in the film and the daughter in the film is fictionalized as well. But my experiences really helped me fashion both the story and the events and episodes that occur in it. Yes, I am, and so I am a lawyer, and the lead character, Sarah, is a lawyer, played by Teri Polo, who does a magnificent job. She just is amazing.
She is.
She pulled off every scene in a very dialogue-heavy sort of film, and one where she was in every scene. So I think a monumental effort, and I think she did a superb job. And she and Pat McDade, who played the father, plays the father in the film, had a great chemistry, and I think it comes across well on screen. I mean, I think there's some very touching moments, some funny moments, some moments that are kind of like uncomfortable, but uncomfortably true. So anyway, yes, the long and short of it is, yeah, there's a certain autobiographical element to it. But both Dafna as the director and Pat and Terry as actors brought a further element that really heightened, I think, the end product of the film. So.
Dafna, so our listeners know what we're talking about. Why don't you give a synopsis of what relative control is all about?
Well, relative control, as Charlene said, is slightly based on her life with some other outtakes of hilarity and drama. But it is about A-type personality attorney whose life kind of just spins completely out of control in the midst of trying to make sure that her son gets a job, her father and mother are taken care of, and at the same time, she's in probably one of the biggest cases of her life at her law firm that she's just gotten hired on to. And all of this all at once, and then just throw in a love interest somewhere, and just a crazy father who is so much fun, who's Pat McDade plays, but he's a handful, and he's an ex-police chief. And her mother, Terry, or Sarah, who's the character, his mother, is also sort of declining a little bit. They're all older. And so the story sort of follows all of that all at once, as Sarah tries to maneuver her life, and her life spins out of control, and that's the character arc.
And for somebody who wants to be in control.
Yes, very much, like I said, an A personality. And so is her father. So it's kind of an interesting kind of face-off between the two of them through this movie. And then you sort of learn that everybody kind of is. Everybody has their own control issues within the movie.
Don't we all? Yeah.
And that's where Charlene really made characters that, there's very few people that are saying, yeah, do what you want to me. But and we've got such great characters. Her partners in crime at the law firm, Jay Blake, who's her sort of her junior at the law firm, and then the people that are a part of the CEO, Brian Wilson, who plays an incredible CEO in the corporation that she's been hired by, and Richard Litton, who a lot of these people are B character actors that you've seen over and over again in different series and movies. And Richard Litton, who plays sort of the nemesis and is fabulous. So we've got a lot of great actors that we were able to pull from. We were so lucky because for Charlene, this is her third act. I mean, in reality, that's what I think makes this movie amazing is that this is her third career pretty much. And to do that in your senior years, and for me, I was always a documentary and commercial director. So for us to come together, and what was wonderful is that Charlene also not only is this her first time doing it, but allowed us to work with her on the script and allowed us to take a look at it over 5 years because of COVID and strikes and all sorts of things that happened in trying to make this film. So we watched it evolve and we watched others bring it to life, especially the actors. Once we started shooting, just did an amazing job with these characters.
Yeah, before you go, I have lots of questions, but the one I want to ask you is the actor who plays the doctor, the love interest. He's very dreamy. What is his name? I want to look him up and see him in other things.
That's Dr. McDonald and his character. But yes, I forgot to mention Jeff Mark, who's a musician and wonderful actor in the Philadelphia region and was a model for years before I think he went into acting, if I recall people telling me. And Jeff was great because we didn't get as much time. You throw them in there and go, okay, now you're a love interest, go. Because again, we shot this in less than 17 days. And really 14 with 3 days sort of pickups. So, the actors really had to bring their A game at every single moment. And like Charlene said, Teri's in every single scene.
You did this in 14 days. I'm like, my jaw dropped. I mean, that's amazing.
Yeah, so was mine. My jaw was dropping every day.
Charlene, as Dafna has said, this is your third act. I love it too. This is probably my fourth or fifth. I'm not sure. I had so many acts along the way. But what made you decide, you were a lawyer. What kind of law did you practice?
I practiced, initially, I was a federal prosecutor for several years, and then I went into private practice as a civil litigator and then ultimately a corporate bankruptcy and reorganization attorney. So I was in private practice for 30 years. And toward the end of that tenure is when my parents started to fail. I watched and was involved in and participated in what was going on with them at the same time that I was struggling to juggling the career demands. And I just thought that there were incidents that were really funny. There were things that occurred that were sort of horribly sad. I thought, there's something here, a story here. And it was a story that I really hadn't seen anywhere between with a woman and a woman having a job and having to take care of the parents as well, having a profession and having to take care of the parents.
And being a single mom.
And a single mom. Yeah. Yep. And I was that as well. Although my son never was dependent upon me financially or otherwise. So, yeah, so I signed up for a course in screenwriting at the University of the Arts in Philadelphia and went one night a week on top of everything else to try to learn the craft of screenwriting. And I wrote this, and I've since written 3 more. But it was it was sort of a passion project because right after I started the course, I think my father passed away, and then within about 3 or 4 years, my mother passed away. So that's how I did it. I knew that I wanted to write eventually when I retired, but I didn't know quite how I wanted to write. And my son is a independent film editor and maker, and so I thought, well, why don't I give the script a try? And that's when I signed up for the course.
Was he involved in this movie?
He gave me notes all along the way as I was writing the script. He was not involved in the movie otherwise, but as I was writing the script, I would send it out, send a new draft out, and he would take a look at it and provide notes for me with it. Yeah.
Which is totally to my luck, because if he was, I wouldn't have gotten to direct. He's an amazing director. I love his. I've seen one of his films that I think is absolutely fantastic, which is Manson Family Vacation, which I love to tell people because it was probably one of my favorite films when I met Charlene. I'm like, let me see what her son does, and I felt very lucky. I was also teaching at one of the universities that Charlene went to, and one of the professors there had recommended me to Charlene, and he called. He said, "Do you want to direct a feature?" And I'm like, "Doc," and he goes, "No, narrative," and I'm like, okay, because I've been directing feature docs and commercial for a long time, and I just never thought at my age I'd have the opportunity. And Charlene and I met, and at the time, my mother had just had a stroke, and I read Charlene's script, and every page was like, "Yep, yep, I can relate to this." Because your whole world changes when you have to start taking care or helping with a parent. It just changes everything. Siblings, which is a huge aspect in this film, the people around you, your job. I was running an ad agency at the time that I had to downsize because of it. So I related it to it so much and felt very lucky that Charlene said, I mean, I remember we left the coffee place where we were having coffee, and I thought, oh, I didn't really interview well. I'm sure she'll interview other people. And I said, well, good luck. And she goes, no, I think you'll be doing this. And it was like almost instantaneous, and it was very nice. And that was the start of our friendship at a coffee shop. And 5 years later, we got to make the film. And I felt so lucky because, again, for women in my generation, and especially on the East Coast, it was very difficult to direct. I was one of the first commercial directors. You just didn't have the opportunity. Most women were producers or writers occasionally, but directing is such a new thing. And it's so nice to see so many women being able to do that the last, 10 years. But again, ageism, and you really don't think you're going to get that opportunity. So it was quite a joy to be able to direct something this special and this meaningful.
Yeah, I was going to ask you how you two connected and how this came about. So thank you for sharing that. Where you mentioned Philadelphia. Is that where you both are? Outside of Philadelphia? Are you?
Well, I live in Delaware. Today I'm in Pasadena, but my permanent residence is in Delaware, but I'm only like 15 minutes from the Pennsylvania border. Dafna's in Philadelphia and Manayunk.
I'm in Philly and Manayunk, one of my favorite communities. I've lived here for years and I love it here.
Okay, my extended family's all in Westchester. That's why I asked. And I went to Penn State. I'm an East Coast girl. And yeah, I went to Penn State. I'm in Santa Barbara now, but yeah.
So interesting.
I went to Pitt, Pennsylvania.
Yeah, good school.
One of our state schools, right? You got Temple, Pitt.
Yeah.
Well, I agree with you. I mean, we just had the Santa Barbara International Film Festival here, and they had 52% of the films that they screened were by women directors.
Great. So wonderful to see that now.
It is. It really is.
I was there. My son had a film at the Santa Barbara Film Festival. And he also there was a documentary that he worked on.
This year?
Was,
yeah. This year, which one, Charlene?
His film was called I Hate Myself and Want to Die. It was 2 screenings. And the other film was, oh boy, Sky Cowboy, something like that, about a fellow that made his living parachuting film. That was the documentary that he worked on with editing. So I was up to see both of them.
Oh, you were at the film festival this year then?
Yeah, although I missed Karen 2 days. We were at different times.
Oh, it's my favorite film festival. I love this film festival. That's why I moved to Santa Barbara. I've been coming here for 16 years.
We just got back from Sedona, and everybody, which was great because we screened to a full house of people, just 2 screenings that people just love the film, and that's what's really interesting because we met so many people from the Santa Barbara. I think it's they sort of compare Sedona and Santa Barbara as some of the best festivals to be at.
They do. I used to live in Sedona prior to moving to California. It'd be 20 years in October. I lived in Sedona, and I just literally interviewed right before this interview the artistic director for the Illuminate film Film Festival, which originated in Sedona 9 years ago, and they brought it to Santa Barbara last year, and it's a phenomenal film festival that will be held in May. Give a little plug here again, another plug. But anyhow, it's all those kind of connections that people have, for sure. Teri Polo was wonderful in this, and I want to know, because this film could have, and this is kudos to you, Dafna. It could have gone into a lot of cliches, and it didn't. And that's, you kind of, I see a lot of movies, obviously. And, you always kind of go, okay, is this going to go into sort of, something we've seen before that becomes cliche-ish? And it didn't. And I think that's really a tribute to you as a director, but also to Teri Polo as the lead actress in this film.
Yeah, and to Pat. The chemistry between yes. Father, Pat McDade, and Teri was... I couldn't hope for any more. I knew Pat for years. I'd only met Teri once, and we had a great Zoom call, and she was willing to take a chance on a new director. And that was based. She wasn't not sure if she was going to take the film, and she said, "I will Zoom with you, and we'll see." And we had a great conversation. And then she also wanted to meet Pat, and the two of them it was a dream to have that as a daughter-father relationship. What they brought to the script, and again, with less days, Teri said, "I'm going to do the take as I see it on the script, because we have very little time and she had so much to memorize. And then we'll do a second take and just one switch of direction." And each time what she and Pat brought to it was just amazing. It really was. There were all these little things that mean so much to make these families real and to make the family seem very realistic. And that was everything. Also, of course, Alice, Kate, the mother, who's played by Alice Shearer, who's an amazing actress, used to be in soap operas years ago, and I just saw her on The Agency, also see her on so many things. And that family unit, and also Ryan Servino, who plays the son, they were able to really kind of bring their own kind of a relationship with each other on set that really made you feel like, besides acting and seeing them on the side, that they were related. And so what they brought to that and what they brought to Charlene's script was amazing. And I think that's what makes the film different, because it doesn't go cliche because of the emotion they were able to bring to it. And that's why it's a dramedy, because when you're faced with ailing parents, it's so difficult for families, whether, whatever side of that coin you're on, and that change of life for everybody. And the idea that they were able to survive through some of it through laughing, and that laughter and that joy that they brought with each other kind of balanced some of the tragedy that the film addresses.
Yeah. And you know what? I always say movies should evoke some kind of emotion from you. So if it's a comedy, let's hope we're laughing. And if it's sad, that we cry. And this movie did make me laugh, and it did make me cry. So it did both of those things, So, again, it's about the relationship that was developed, between the two lead characters, that you really felt it. You felt, their love for each other, despite everything that was going on and everything. And that has to do with your script, Charlene. How did, for you being a first-time screenwriter, what was that process like for you to write this film? I mean, how many rewrites did you have? And how did you, even though you two met, how did you know that, Dafna was going to become the person to direct this film after you had met?
Well, in some ways, I think being a first-time writer was helpful, because and the fact that I worked so hard as a lawyer. I was working 12-hour days, 7 days a week, that I never went to the movies. I never watched movies. I rarely watched television. And so for me, it was sort of a clean slate. Once I learned the paradigm of the three-act structure and what should be taking place in it, I just did it based upon my observations over the years, and made the characters based on observations of people over the years. And I really wasn't making reference to any other, like any other movie, or so it wasn't cliched in that sense, I don't think. So that was an advantage, I believe. there were a myriad of revisions over, I would say, the course. Well, originally I started it 5 years before the pandemic, and took a course for the class for almost 5 years. And I worked on it a lot during that period of time, although I was working on some other scripts as well. And then with the pandemic, we had been casting before the pandemic, and then we had to stop. And during that period of time, Dafna and I stayed in touch. We talked about it. Dafna actually was accepted into or selected for a Sundance program for first-time narrative filmmakers, which helped greatly, I think, and then she can address that if she wants. But
yeah, it was a wonderful program.
Advantage. So she was able to take advantage of that during that time, and we worked on nuances throughout. And then Dafna brought the visual aspect to what I had written, and enhanced that a lot. So there were a number of drafts. I lost count.
Were you on the set when they were filming it, Charlene? Were you on the set? Did you do rewrites during the filming of it?
Not much.
No, we did very, very little. Just when we'd have to realize we run out of time or cut a scene, we'd have to look. We went to Charlene and said we need a connection here because we're going to have to shorten this scene and we're going to have to take this out. So what's the art? What's the connection? And she was really good at coming back very quickly with those changes if we needed them. But we really didn't change that much once we got to set. We had worked it and kind of workshopped it amongst other acting friends. Nobody, I think only one, Richard was the only one from that group that actually ended up in the film. Everybody else we workshopped it with. And that was kind of fun to do and see what was funny, what would play. And some of the actors brought stuff to it, and Charlene was very open to either adding stuff or saying this doesn't work or she'd go back and work on it. So that was kind of really interesting to be able to do that. But then COVID hit. This was all before COVID. And then so then a couple years gone, kind of went by before we were able to actually shoot it. And we were so lucky to have Teri Polo that she just nailed it as the character.
Yeah, she did.
Where did you film this?
We filmed it primarily in Delaware. As
Charlene's office.
Old office.
I guess as part of my retirement package from the firm. I was president of the firm at the time that I retired, and so I extracted this promise that if I ever got this script made into a film, we could use the offices for shooting it. And so that started the tumble, and we were fortunate. I mean, the people in Delaware were so excited about having something filmed there. We got a lot of locations for free. So
I was going to say, okay, I want to know Teri Polo's character's home. I loved it. Whose home was that?
That was my Jake, my junior partner, his house.
That was nice of him to let you shoot in his house.
Yeah, it was very nice.
Yes, very nice.
Beautiful home. Beautiful home.
Pass that along.
Sorry?
I said I'll pass that along to him. It is a lovely home.
Please do.
Well, I know you. I was going to ask you what was the most difficult part of shooting this, because that's one of my favorite questions. But the fact that you did it in 14 days with 3 extra,
I'll add one more thing to that, because we had to postpone.
I do want to know what else there might have been.
Let me tell you what I'll never do again is shoot a winter or fall film, which was Charlene really wanted this and more of fall, because you'll see Christmas in there and the family, and there's some funny parts about there's a whole instance about that they're sending greetings out. It's very funny. What happens between Sarah and her parents, but they were all wearing fall and winter clothes, and it was 105 degrees. It is one of the hottest Augusts we've had in this area. People were just schwitzing everywhere. I mean, it was, the poor makeup people are just walking around with rags. Everybody's like doing their underarms. And Teri, but poor thing, I was so hot. And then the CEO had just recovered from surgery. So I can tell you the behind the scenes of all these people trying to look cool in the worst heat.
Oh, and she has a blanket on her for a good portion of the film. She's wrapped up.
And then she's walking like by the Delaware, I guess in the beautiful area in Wilmington or along the riverfront, and they're all in like leather coats. And I think the doctor Jeff, it was they were just completely overdressed for the actual weather.
Oh,
And then we also had to take locusts out because I've never heard so many locusts, the sound of locusts in the background when they're not supposed to be around. So those are always interesting things when you're trying to shoot a particular season.
And did you have to add, obviously you had to add all the colors to the trees then?
We were lucky because we shot, that's where we did the pickup. And, we were very lucky because Anthony, our Benedetto, was our wonderful DP, also does great aerial photography. And so we were able to go back and shoot some of those like as we were editing in the fall. So we got some beautiful foliage in that area, in that Delaware area. That was just beautiful.
It was beautiful. It's one of the things I miss the most about living on the West Coast. I love the West Coast, but I miss the fall, and I love winter. I'm one of those people who love snow. I know people think I'm really weird. When it rains here, I get super excited because it's bad weather.
Oh, and I'm so thrilled. We finally hit 60 today. I'm like, woohoo.
Oh, we're supposed to go to 80 next week. And I'm like, oh, I hate that when it's hot. I hate it when it's too warm. But anyhow, well, it really is. And there's so many people, as I said, who are experiencing exactly what this movie's all about. Where can people see Relative Control?
And that's really what it is. It's about, I think that, what Charlene's done mostly is to create a film that people can talk about. Everybody in those theaters that we've screened have said, oh my gosh, that's what I'm dealing with my father. That's what I'm dealing with my mother, my sibling. I'm the only caretaker, and they compare with their sibling issues. And so, the sandwich generation is so huge. I think we keep quoting 30 million, I think was yesterday, Charlene quoted, and thought it was even an older number. So I think that's the whole wonderful theme of conversation for this film.
Yeah, I agree 100%. It definitely is.
So where can
Yes,
people see Relative Control? Where can they see it?
It's being released April 11th on demand on multiple platforms, including Amazon and Apple, and a myriad of others. And
I think any platform you have, you can stream it. It's available for pre-sale right now, which is great, and then drops April 11th.
Wonderful. Well, everybody seek out Relative Control. It's a lovely film, and you will laugh and you will cry, and it's a lovely film. Well, thank you both, Dafna, and I'm sorry I mispronounced your name, so I'm sorry about that. And Charlene, both of you. I look forward to your next film. Are you going to collaborate on the next film together?
I'm hoping.
Fingers crossed.
I have 3 scripts that I'm trying to decide if I want to make one more. So yeah, certainly Dafna and I've talked about collaborating again.
Great. Well, I look forward to having you back on for your next collaboration. Take care, and I wish you much success with Relative Control. Lovely to have you both on the show.
Thank you, Jan.
You're very welcome.